Welcome to Illo Talk. I am Corey Kerr, and today I want to talk about AI art. But before I do, look, I made another thing. This one is called Resist Programming, just like it says in the little ribbon there. Resist Programming is the next in the Esoteric Crumble Flux series, with Turn Off to Activate and Stop Numbing and Feel. These all have different but overlapping messages. Resist Programming is about being aware of the inherent biases of the communication that we consume. For example, very few of us are aware of how much time we actually spend on social media or how many times a day the apps on our phones draw us back in with notifications. We are the dog in Pavlov's experiment, and we instinctively react to every bell, buzz, and boing without thinking. I recommend turning your notifications off so that you choose to engage with your apps rather than your apps choosing to engage you. This isn't a do-your-own research situation where some crackpot is hoping that you don't do any research and just believe that he's done the hard work for you so that you believe him. I'm talking about sitting with your own thoughts and thinking about your own thinking, meta-thinking. I'm talking about being intentional about the things that you allow to influence you. For example, I have decided to get to work on time. I've decided that getting to work on time is important to me. I've made commitments. People are relying on me. I get paid. There are all kinds of reasons that getting to work on time is something that I want to do. But I don't naturally wake up when I need to. So I set an alarm to wake me up. I'm choosing to augment my morning with a disruptive sound that stops me from sleeping because I've decided that the benefits of waking up at a specific time are worth the disruption to my sleep. I've decided to introduce an external force into my life. I'm using the alarm clock to program part of my morning. But what if my alarm clock also tried to convince me to be a bulimic or hate Jewish people? What if my alarm clock was effective in shifting my thinking and made me feel bad about my dad bod, enticing me towards disordered thinking about food? Or what if, in addition to waking me up on time, something that I want, it also made me ignore my kids and gave me anxiety? I would almost immediately get rid of the alarm clock and figure out a different solution for waking up. Preferably one that didn't try to convince me to hate things and feel sad. And yet, we're totally cool buying into the programming offered us by the media and tech billionaires who would grind us into hamburger meat if one, it increased their profits, and two, they could get away with it. That seems far-fetched, but Facebook and Instagram are feeding adolescent girls content, teaching them to have eating disorders. YouTube is a key tool in radicalizing young men into violent extremism. And the military-industrial complex promotes war to increase demand for their products. In each of these situations, people die. But it's within the range of acceptable loss that CEOs and stakeholders are comfortable with. So it's fine. If a tech giant could squeeze a few more billion out of people-based hamburger meat with no negative repercussions, I guarantee they'd do it. In fact, they'd probably normalize it by using criminals and the poor first. There might even be a marketing campaign talking about their contribution to the overpopulation problem or something. My point is this. We have become accustomed to horrifying realities and terrible atrocities because there are very few personal benefits wrapped up in the programming. This piece is about questioning your assumptions, especially if those assumptions are based on things said by those who would do you harm. If someone spends a lot of time trying to convince you that you're powerless to stop them, that you can't change anything, or that you should just accept their views, they're conning you. If you believe them, it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. You should resist programming, even if you get some benefit from the programmers. I don't mean that you should live naked in a cave and cut yourself off from society, but I do mean that we should all be very intentional and aware of how the tools we're using are trying to use us. What does any of this have to do with AI art? Well, I will tell you. We, as an artistic community, are being programmed to do exactly the things that will bring us direct harm and make the world a worse place. First, a premise about art. The world is a better place when people engage in creating things to express themselves. The act of practicing for years to become skilled at something is a meaningful and worthwhile use of time. In fact, the work that writers, artists, filmmakers, and other creators produce changes the world for the better. Dictators and injustices are exposed and toppled, all while we become familiar with those that have different experiences to ourselves and learn to empathize with each other. Art is more than a product, more than a piece of content, more than entertainment, or more than something to do to just pass the time. Art is literally part of the essential nature of humanity. I find the automation of art to be offensive in the same way that I would be offended if some huckster was selling knockoff merch next to the casket at a loved one's funeral. There is something deeply disturbing about the cold, calculated nature of automating truly human things. Right now, we would bristle at the idea of a neural implant that triggered the release of dopamine and serotonin whenever we encountered an advertisement for a specific brand. But what if we bought into the lie that we were required to have that advertising neural implant for the streaming video services to work, and the advertising neural implant wasn't doing any harm? In fact, it actually feels good, so stop complaining. You can always opt out of the advertising neural implant by not using our streaming service. Besides, we're a private company and we can choose to engage with us or not. By the way, if you choose not to engage with us, just know that we've got half of Congress and all of our regulators in our back pocket so that all of our competition is going to be doing the same thing, and advertising neural implants are inevitable. Also, we've passed a law for all newborn babies to be implanted at birth, so you're really just a Luddite old fuddy-duddy if you don't get on board. Enjoy the tar pit. Is this hyperbole? Sure, right now. But wearable tech isn't that far off from this nightmare scenario, and if DC or Silicon Valley could pull this off today, you bet they'd try it. So AI art, I barely mentioned it, but my concerns with it are in line with all of this. We naturally bristle at someone verbally trying to convince us of their honesty. The lady doth protest too much, says Hamlet's mother, oblivious to the irony of her own protestations. When tech billionaires, venture capitalists, skeevy NFT bros, and hedge fund managers all get together to tell me that something is good for me, inevitable, or not my concern, I immediately take notice. When you look slightly below the surface and see the legal grift of nonprofit organizations owned by for-profit companies scooping up licensed art by the truckload and claiming it's fair use research, all while not compensating the artists that they're stealing from and trying to move so quickly that the courts and legislators can't keep up, it should, at the very least, give us reason to be concerned. Instead of rambling on about how I feel about it, I'll issue a challenge. Resist the programming and take a look at who is saying things and whether they have your best interest at heart. Don't buy into the idea that something is inevitable and that you are powerless to effect change. Don't take the bait and react to insults. Do not listen only to what is being said, but look at what the companies have to gain by you believing what they're saying. Tech progress is not inevitable. There are ethical, moral, and reasonable ways that this could play out, but a brighter future will only happen if we are aware of the programming that is out there and intentionally engaging with the messaging and actions that we choose to engage with. Otherwise, we'll be swept up in whatever tide currently controls the prevalent programming message. And I don't even need you to agree with what I'm saying. I just want you to think about why you believe the things that you believe. I don't want you to instinctually just accept what's going on, because if you just do that, then you will be used by the people that are very, very good at getting us to numb ourselves into not recognizing when we're being used. So no matter what side of this you fall on all of this types of things, AI art and automation and Boston Dynamics releasing New York police dogs in the streets, I want you to think about why you think those things and be able to feel comfortable understanding that the people that you are believing actually have your best interest at heart. Now, if you like my art and or messages, choose to engage with it by joining my email newsletter at coreykerr.com/email. And we will catch you guys later. Go make stuff.
This is Philip talking.